Hey everybody, welcome to Sensory Systems. Before we go into the main sensory systems lesson today, I want to share a little bit about the structure of the upcoming lessons. We'll have repeated structures for the main lessons coming up. We'll typically begin with learning objectives. Then each chapter offers a list of prefixes, roots or combining forms, and suffixes relevant to that specific system. And then the main text begins with a blurb of introduction and details in multiple blocks, and they have videos, figures, detailed descriptions with sprinkles of activities to test your own learning. And then the text shares key diseases and disorders of the specific system that the chapter is on. Um, they also offer a real life case of a patient where you can fill in the blank, the terms that you learned. And they also include a list of specialties related to the system. And then at the very end, they offer a list of terminologies and very brief definitions, like a vocabulary list for you to memorize. So again, my videos are to introduce you into the body system that you will learn from the chapter and requires a lot of studying on your own because we're trying to learn the meanings of these new terminologies. And then you go on Canvas or you go onto Canvas and do the assignment for that specific lesson. So you'll see what I mean with the first lesson, sensory systems. The learning objectives include the following. So by the end of this session or this entire lesson, you'll be able to examine the anatomy of the sensory systems, determine the main functions of the sensory systems, differentiate the medical terms of the sensory systems and common abbreviations, discover the medical specialties associated with the sensory systems, and recognize common diseases, disorders, and procedures related to the sensory systems. Here we go. What they mean by sensory system is how we sense things. It's quite literal. So you know we have five senses, right? Taste, smell, touch, hearing, and sight. Our senses can be divided into general versus special. So touch is quite general in that it is sensed through distributed receptors like skin pressure or which are specialized nerve endings that detect potential harmful stimuli and, initiate the pain signaling pathways like nociceptors. Special senses have dedicated organs, so your tongue tastes, your nose smells, your ears hear, and your eyes see. And then there are some other non-main ones or non-main senses like balance or equilibrium, temperature, pain, etc. Well, some of you might think six actually. Most of you were born after this movie, I'm assuming, The Sixth Sense from 1999. So I was underage at the time to watch it. And I'm scared of scary movies, so I never watched it. I won't spoil it, but I heard it's a really good one. So if you're interested in The Sixth Sense, it's something you can watch. So I would try and start with a thorough look at the blocks. Again, prefixes and suffixes. Repeat. So you'll soon reach a point where you don't even need to memorize any of these prefixes or suffixes. Combining forms I saw were more relevant to sensory systems. So those are going to be new. So we're talking about taste and smell together because they're tied together, right? You can sense those as you're eating every day. Gustation or taste is the sense associated with the tongue, which has four types of papillae, such as circumvallate, foliate, filiform, and fungiform. So taste buds on tongue papillae are in four forms. Olfaction is a sense associated with receptor neurons within the superior nasal cavity or like your nose. So I would watch the video on the textbook, which is about 10 minutes. Read the text and familiarize yourself with these terminologies and concepts, thinking about your own tasting and smelling experiences. Audition or hearing is the sense associated with the ear. The sound waves change into a neural signal, which then is ready for the structures of the ear and to process through external, middle, and inner ear. Inner ear is not merely for hearing, but also for equilibrium or balancing for us. So, head position, your head movement, and body motions, they're all sensed by cells inside the inner ear. So, again, watch the video on the textbook, which is about also 10 minutes. And then, read the text and familiarize yourselves. And try and think about your own hearing and balancing experiences and see what parts of our bodies are called. Okay, let's take a breath. Cute kitties are here with us. Okay, somatosensation is considered a general sense as opposed to the special senses we just discussed, um, tasting, smelling, and hearing. So we can sense the sensation of touches through skin, muscles, joints, and even viscera, which is the internal organs in the main cavities of the body. So in other words, like, within like our abdominal cavity, some of our organs feel feel touches. And then lastly, vision is a special sense of sight that takes light stimuli received through your eyes and then sends to your brain. In the textbook, they have a list of diseases and disorders common in olfactory, ENT, and eyes related. And then some specialties and clinical connections show that otolaryngology, although it's just impossible to read that, I know this because I have a friend who is in otolaryngology, but this is typically what we consider ENT or ears, nose, and throat. Those specialists who focus on those. Audiology is actually not um like a medical doctor, but they're an audiology doctorate or a PhD. So they're focused on hearing loss. So it's really about the function of your hearing that they're focused on. They're clinical care providers as well. Ophthalmology is typically the vision. Optometrists, they're focusing on examining and evaluating pathology and prescribes corrective lenses, but ophthalmologists, they look at eye pathology as well as, related surgeries to your eyes. There's also dermatology, but I think that comes up later with skin, so I think I'm actually going to save that for now. So I saw that for the sensory systems, we have 68 terms or vocabularies. So for these, try and aim to master 70 to 80% of the terms here, okay, at this very moment. I think, of course, it's really important to pursue excellence, but I want us all to realize that it's your first time looking at a lot of these terminologies, and it will require some repeated um revisits for you to feel familiar with these terms. So because otherwise they are going to slip away from your brain. And so for now, try and aim to remember about 50 terms while you're studying this summer right now, and then really familiarize yourselves to these words. Okay, some 1 minute reflection questions for you. What is one thing you'd remember from class today? What is one thing you find unclear from class today? And anything you'd like to share with me? Please feel free to share those in the OMRs. So these questions are really quite generic. It applies to anything related to the lesson. It can be about anything. I may or may not be able to answer all of your questions. Um, and some of your questions may be outside of the scope of this course, but it's really for you to, check in with your own learnings and for me to follow up on how you're doing in class. So for this class, I think I will follow up on the OMRs you submit through a page on Canvas, so you can always revisit those. I'll send out an announcement about that. Thanks so much.